thoughts. So we'll go to Dave in Wisconsin, who wants to talk about arriving at conclusions regarding the existence of God using science.
Gentlemen, thanks for taking the call. I was really calling to continue a conversation I was having with Dan. He invited me to call back, but I'm curious to understand, just for clarity's sake, how we have conversations in the atheist experience. The objective, as I understand the show, is that theists call in. I'm a theist, and that your position is that it's our obligation to prove the existence of God, not your position to disprove it. Am I wrong on that, or is that kind of the way the show goes?
This depends. I mean, it's going to depend on like who you talk to on the show. I mean, someone like me and hopefully Shannon Q doesn't get mad at me lumping this in there, but I think we have a similar position. We're more of like what you would say a hard atheist. So like I have reasons why I would lean more on the idea that gods do not exist, as opposed to kind of reserving judgment. In that case, yeah, there could be a dialectic where we discuss that, but for some hosts, right, they're not convinced that the proposition is true, and so they want to be convinced. And I'm in a similar boat there. Like I have my view, and if someone wants to discuss why I come to that conclusion, I mean, I'm happy to go through it. It's a pretty lengthy analysis, and it's probably not. And I don't want to bore people on it or anything like that. But I also am in the same boat where I'm not convinced that the Christian God exists or the Muslim God exists. Maybe they do, and so that'd be great to have evidence for that claim. So it really just depends on like the context of the dialogue, which I'm happy to go either way.
Yeah, and I agree, Dave. I agree with Mike that I mean, my personal opinion is that I'm not convinced of any of the propositions I've ever heard. But in the wider scope of things, there is a very legitimate branch of epistemology which states that, you know, you make the claim and the claim stands true until it is disproven. So if you're having strictly that conversation in that kind of in that way and in that strict technical sense, then I think there is a case to be made that, you know, you can make the claim and then it's the other person's position, it's their burden to show that claim is not true. So I think, you know, I'm kind of on Mike on that. I'm happy to go either way. It depends what the conversation entails.
Yeah, and also I need to know like what you mean by God and all that, because like what I think I'm potentially denying might not even be the concept that someone has, right? And so it does kind of help for the theist to establish like what they even mean by God and kind of go from there. And then, you know, however you want if you want to ask reasons why I think that thing doesn't exist, I can provide that. But if someone's convinced walking around that they know the fundamental nature of reality as confident as they do, I feel like that they would be the one that would possess the argument or the evidence for that at a higher degree. So, Dave, I don't know if that helps explain.
So, sure. And I understand that just the lady that answered the phone said that when I say something that there's about a 10-second delay. So if there's a period of silence there, I mean, as soon as I hear you stop talking, then I'll respond. So I'm not sure how it works on your end.
Okay. Yeah. There might be a delay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So, you know, I'm a biblical theist, and I do believe in the biblical God, and that Jesus is God, and that he really did rise from the dead as a proof of his statements as to who he was. And I do believe in miracles, and I do believe that there are demons and that they do have power, and, you know, and on and on. So I'm pretty much straight line down that road. That's one.
That is a lot of stuff. That is a lot of stuff that we could actually get into. So which kind of aspect of that do you want to talk about? Because there's so much there we could talk about. Yeah. You know, obviously we haven't got hours to discuss the whole thing. So which of those things do you think is the kind of strongest thing for the kind of?
I was not I'm not because I'm in the car and I'm not in front of the screen, so I don't know which gentleman I'm speaking to. But the last one that had spoken to me said you didn't know what my position was, so I was simply clarifying my position and who I was. I wasn't trying to pick a topic. I was just
Okay, that's fine.
and what I believe.
Sure. So it says that
thing
you. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
The other thing about the show is that depending on who I'm talking to, I don't know. Some of the guys that I've spoken to in the past, there's nothing that will ever convince them. So the objective is not to convince one of the hosts.
We are all individuals.
That God exists.
We're all individuals, but we have something in common that none of us in the 27 seasons we've done have been convinced by arguments that have been presented on the show. We might have different levels. I mean, someone on here might not be a naturalist. They might be a non-naturalist, but an atheist. I have no idea. But
Yeah.
you know, it's going to depend, because I'm not Kenneth and I'm not Shannon Q. Someone could call up and they could ask why do you think God doesn't exist? And that might not be their position. The way they take atheism is, look, I'm just not convinced in the proposition God exists. And you're going to have to deal with it from that point. And then, you know, someone like me might be leaning a lot heavier on that side. Well, I'm getting confident to say that I think that proposition is more likely true than false, and I can give my reasons. But my thing is that none of us have shut the door off. The thing is always open, and presumably the theist has like had a life-changing event, right? Especially if you're a Christian or you're a Muslim, and this is something like way more embedded as a view or as a worldview, and you operate your daily life around it. And it's way different than, you know, I think me or Richard, who we're tentative. We can come off the position. We're skeptics. We'd be happy to, but that's going to involve someone providing some type of evidence or providing an argument, because I haven't seen those that make me go, I have to believe, I'm rationally committed to God existing. And if that's true, that'd be great. I'd want to know that. So,
you're helping to resolve my questions about the show and so on. So it depends on who the host is and who I'm talking to. From a sense of an argument, I and you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that the scientific method can apply to either proving or disproving the existence of God. I think that science, being, you know, a study of through natural, you know, phenomenon, the universe as it is and so on, and I don't think that you can prove God from the scientific method. That doesn't even compute to me.
Well, don't worry about proving. Let's go something with like a little lesser. Like, what about raising the probability that it could be true? Right. I'm not interested in my views of being like convinced, right? Because sure, we could talk with that guy later, and he'd be like, "How do you know you're not a brain in a vat?" And it's like, well, I mean, I'm not absolutely certain about that. I guess I could wake up tomorrow and find out the whole thing's been a dream, and that's totally a possibility. But I want to talk about what things we have good reason to think is true, or what raises the likelihood that it's true. And from and so for me, at least, I want to at least try to be as humble as I can and say, I don't need you to prove God. I need good reasons or an argument that, you know, it's more probable than naturalism. I don't know. Maybe you have something like that, but I'm open to all of them. And it doesn't have to be proof. It can just be, hey, I think this is reasonable to assess that this is more likely than its negation. I just haven't seen that.
Okay.
I would say regarding the kind of the scientific thing that I think it depends on the claim, because if I think in general, it would be correct to say that we can't prove a supernatural entity using our current scientific methods. However, if the claim is that entity is interacting with the physical world, we should be able to take that point of interaction and test that and see if there's some anomaly happening there. Even if it doesn't lead us to the supernatural entity, it should show us an anomaly which we can investigate further
and have predictive expectation for. And I'm absolutely in agreement with Richard there. And because, look, let's say it doesn't have to be the scientific method. Maybe it's not testable in your view. I'm going to go one step lower, because I'm trying to just to see where maybe we can stack up more things into the criteria. But let's start at novel predictions. Do you have predictive expectation or predictive success on the hypothesis? And if you do, that's great. Like my ears perk up a little bit, right? And that would kind of go hand in hand with what Richard's saying, is that if you have, hey, I think God is part of I don't know, the distribution of allele frequencies or whatever, and some intelligent design kind of notion. If you have that, then presumably we could make predictions off the hypothesis, and we could get success off those predictions. And that's a really good reason to think that your hypothesis is working or your model is working. And so, yeah, I think that we have options for that. I think that there's ways that you could take those principles and use them. It just seems that like what we're doing is sidestepping like an extremely rigorous process, or at least components of those. And that's just not as interesting to me. It's like, okay, well, if you have something else, I mean, just, I don't know, offer that, but
I don't think
it's not really my problem, you know?
Yeah, I'm always waiting for a pause for me to interject. So I don't like talking over people. So I'm just.
Oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for you to finish. As soon as I hear you pause for a few seconds, then I'll talk. But until you stop talking,
I'll say over. I'll say over, Dave. I'll say over just to help out. But yeah, anything you want to add? I mean, I don't know. I kind of want to move on to other callers, or maybe if you have reasons to believe, we can get into a more, I don't know, in-depth conversation there on that. But if not, I don't know, Richard, if you want to say anything, but yeah. Over.
Yeah, I'd be interested in kind of investigating some of the reasons that you believe, if you want to do that. But you know, if you were just calling, as Mike said, about just having that conversation about science, then, you know, give us a call back for some of the reasons another time. But I'm happy to go into one or two of them now if you want to do that.
No, and again, I just haven't had a chance to even make a statement in that regard. But from understanding if God exists, I don't believe that such scientific method is a way to do it. I can't set up something that is testable that might happen in the future, other than maybe his return. We can talk about it, but that's based on historical events. What I would be looking at is that to talk about to convince me whether God exists or not, the only way I can do it is kind of a missing body, dead body approach from an investigative standpoint, from the same way that they would do a cold case and prove somebody guilty for murder. You can only do it on circumstantial evidence, and that's about the only way I can approach it. And quite frankly, why I believe God does exist, and that all the things that I said I believe in. Just by lining up a whole lot of stuff historically and then sizing up and saying, what's the probability? Okay, verdict, I'm guilty. I believe that God exists because of the lining up of a lot of historical information, and saying, yeah, what's the probability that he doesn't exist? I guess I believe that he does exist. So we can't, I don't think we can get into it today. I just wanted to first call in, and at least I now understand that I will never have a conversation with the Atheist Experience trying to prove something that's testable. The only thing I can do is do it circumstantially, and then come to a conclusion based on circumstantial evidence. That's it.
Dave, just before we let you go, and I appreciate that, and you know, you've been very cordial, and I appreciate that as well. And you know, I'd love to have that conversation about that historical evidence, you know, one of the times you call in the future. But just before you go, what do you think about what we've said about that point where the supernatural entity interacts with the world? Do you agree that we should be able to investigate that point using the scientific method and at least find an anomaly there?
All right. Okay. All right. This may seem a little weird to you guys, but fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, my family lineage goes back generations in being involved in satanic worship. My generation specifically being, well, me, I guess, I broke the chain.
To me, Dave, that's like saying, but Dave, you gotta understand, to us, it's like saying in my family, we had people that worshipped like Garfield or something. Like it's fake and fiction to us, so it doesn't really matter in that sense.
Yeah, well, the problem with it, guys, is that it involves the interaction with demonic beings where they actually get physically involved. And that is testable. And I'll tell you what, that's a road down which.
So why haven't we seen that?
I mean, I can tell you about it, and you can get involved in it. But I would seriously and highly would not recommend it because.
But you don't need to tell us about it and us to get involved, because those instances of that happening have been investigated. And as far as I know, there's never been one scientific conclusion which has stated that they are supernatural events.
No,
yeah, and Dave,
I'm not saying. I don't know what stories you've been told or what events you've been talked about. I can
this would be front news
and other people, and that you could in it, but I'm telling you, you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
but that warning is kind of a complete nothing burger to us.
Yeah, it's very vacuous.
That's like saying, if you're not very good, you're going to go to hell when you die, and it just means nothing. It's not it's not the thing you think it is to us. If there's a chance, if there's a chance that there is something happening here that could provide evidence and could be used, could be investigated using the scientific method, that's the first place we want to go, not somewhere we want to stay away from.
Well, I'm just saying, my personal recommendation is that you don't go down that road. But if you're talking about testability, that you personally, each of you guys individually would want to know about, that's a road you could go down, and believe me, it's testable through your own experience.
Dave, that wasn't the question I asked. Dave, the question I asked you was relating to the scientific method testing these interactions of the supernatural realm interacting with our realm, and could the scientific method that we have be used to detect an anomaly there? That was the question I asked you about. It's not about my personal how I personally feel, my personal me having a go at that thing, doing tarot cards or whatever it is you want. It's about using the scientific method to test that and find an anomaly.
Yeah, Dave, he has nothing to do with this view of what he goes down. I mean, it's weird because you're talking like at kind of two sides of your mouth in one sense, where you're like, well, it's not testable, but then here's this thing that's testable, but I warn you not to go down that route. I mean, that's what I feel like I'm talking to a snake oil salesman in a sense. Like, I don't think that you're, I don't think like, you know what I mean? It's not like I think you're dishonest. I think you genuinely believe this. So I don't think it's analogous in the sense that you're trying to sell me something that you think is bullshit to make a buck, but that's how it feels to me. And then when someone kind of throws well, you're going to experience this. Well, it's like me. It's literally like me just saying, you'll feel the wrath of Forrest's, closet monster Roland after you die. It just wouldn't, you would be like, wait, what? Like you'd walk away and be like, that guy is kind of strange. And that's how it kind of comes off for us. But real quick, before I, just real quick, because we got to move on to other callers. I just want to point out that it does. Well, I'll let you go. It's just
happens
what
if
I want.
You talk too much. I never have a chance to really respond because you talk a long time.
Yeah, I waited that entire time. Dave,
show right now and watch the time meter. You talk.
All right, Dave. We're gonna let you go, bud. I sat there that whole time. If you watched the clip back and waited, and then I didn't even get the point in, and you got upset. So just watch that clip back over.